and getting you guys really comfortable with using the brand, understanding the brand, and really who we are with the brand. A little bit of background about me is I'm Amanda Tano. I've been with ASP for about 8-9 years now, and it's a brand that when I came into it, I was using a little bit of everything. I had my favorite reds and, I used something else for great coverage. I had my favorite blonding products, and I really just cherry picked through every line. And until I got introduced to ASP, everything really just made sense. And it's a line that I use exclusively. And more than just working for them and using exclusively, it's a brand that gives me everything I need. So I don't need to reach out and get something from somewhere else. It has everything from that awesome gray coverage to those blonding products to the most incredible, rich, vibrant reds. And it's something that my clients love. It's super user-friendly behind the chair. And you get that support. We're doing all these classes free of charge during this time, and it's a way for you guys to learn and grow more about ASP, and we love being able to do it. We miss traveling, but we love being able to do it from afar as well. So we're gonna go into, let me screen share. Awesome, let me make that full view. Awesome, can you guys see that okay? Just give me a thumbs up. Awesome. So ASP, we're a company that is really a global brand. And with this global brand, you can see down here on the bottom left, we have the Affinage USA headquarters, and that is based in Vista, California. So that's going to be Southern California. And everything that gets manufactured and produced from the UK gets shipped over right to the US, and that's where it's distributed all across the United States and Canada, right here from Southern California. We have 2 other divisions over in Hong Kong and Australia, and where all the magic happens within the laboratory is with Nicola Summer, and that's going to be in Bologna, Italy. So Nicola Summer comes from a family of hair color chemists, and he's someone that takes everything that we want and just manufactures it into a hair color line. And if there's any time that we want to adjust something or there's a specific product that we're really looking for, he's the one that takes it and develops it. He's awesome. And so then we have the Romsey UK headquarters, where it's the worldwide headquarters. So we're really a global brand all across the world. So we have world-beating products born in Britain. So we're a Britain-born company. In 1996, the International Hair Cosmetics, the UK, conceived, created, launched the premium hair care brand, Affinage Salon Professional. So during this time, we've been going through a rebranding. And so the name is Affinage Salon Professional. And we've just, as you can see on the top, recreated it to ASP. So you'll hear all the educators go back and forth between Affinage and ASP, and all it is it means the same thing. Okay. Right here in the middle, we have our Vista San Diego headquarters, and so that is the building. On the right, we have the Australian headquarters, and on the left, that's Romsey in the UK. Where's Affinage in the world? So we are in over 50 countries worldwide, growing every single day. And so, when someone says, oh, I've never really heard of it, is it a small brand? We're a global company. We are all across the United States, and that's what I love about it so much. In the UK, they actually have an academy, an Affinage Salon Professional Academy, and in Italy. Hopefully we can have one in the US soon as we can travel and get to other places. And then we have our mission statement. With ASP, we use our knowledge, research, innovation, technology to create superior, safe, leading edge products that inspire passion, creativity, and reassurance to the salon professional. So at ASP, we're really big on getting our education out there and getting that information out to you guys so you guys can use it behind the chair more efficiently. And time is money, so we're using our products super efficiently and getting you guys awesome results. This is everything that Infinity, or that Affinage has to offer. So we have our permanent hair color, which is going to be Infinity. We have our color highlighting, which is going to be our Be Red. We have our tone-on-tone colors, which is our satin line. Our semi-permanents are going to be Hot Shots. Our fashion colors are going to be the Infinity Metallics and Color Dynamics. And you see that the semi-permanent also leads over to Color Dynamics. And then one that isn't on here as well is going to be our toners. And then we have our color correction products, which are Eraser and Quick Pick. So this is nice because it kind of gives you a little bit of a route. If you're looking for something with semi-permanent, it gives you that little bit to go, okay, these are my options to choose from. So we just went through a new generation of our Infinity hair color. This is our permanent line, and with this, we have our new GPS technology. So this is our new branding of all of our products. And what I love about these is you can see on the bottom, it says it has a little 1, and then a little parentheses, and then another little number. So it gives you the mixing ratio. So if you're ever lost and you go, I don't know, I can't remember how to mix Be Red, or I don't know how to mix Be Brown, all you simply do is just look on the bottom of the tube and it's written out right there. So it's really nice, and it gives you a little cheat sheet. So something is new with our new color is going to be our GPS technology. And GPS technology works similar to how GPS technology works on your cell phones. So GPS, you type in an address and it takes you to that address the most efficiently way possible. So with that, in our hair color, it's also going to do the same exact thing. It's going to take our color molecule, gets encapsulated with our oxygen molecule, and transports it to the inside of the hair. From there, it's going to work most efficiently. Okay. With that, we get less color fadage, we get less free radicals entering the hair, we get better UV protection from that, and just better results all over. So with keeping that cuticle intact, we also have the addition of argan oil and shea butter. That argan oil and shea butter has actually been in there this whole time through, and what that does is it just gives the hair extra shimmer and extra shine that stays all the way through. We're also more than 90% naturally derived. And in today's world, that's something that is really big. Everyone's getting a little bit more health conscious, a little bit more just conscious of that, especially in our products that we're using. So being more than 90% naturally derived is something that we really stand behind. And it's something that we've always had. This isn't something that is new to ASP. It's something that we've always had. So that GPS technology gives you a really nice workable viscosity. So if you've used Infinity before, you know the texture of it was really nice and creamy. Well, this new workable viscosity gives it even more spreadability. That color is really nice and creamy, and it mixes really well with just a color brush, but it's something you can also whisk up together as well. So it's really nice, really, really workable. And what's so great about it is when you mix it up and apply it onto the hair, it stays exactly where you apply it. So you're not gonna have color that drips down the face or anything like that. You also have incredible color intensity. So again, if you've used Infinity before and you've used ASP, you know that we stand behind our reds, we stand behind our coppers, because there's nothing else like it on the market. There's nothing as bright, there's nothing as intense as our Infinity colors within our reds. So with this new GPS technology, what it allowed us to do is also make our reds and our coppers stand out even brighter and even greater than before. So with that being said, try them, use them, they're incredible. It's also really easy to apply. So again, that workable viscosity makes it super easy to apply. It gives it ultimate condition and shine. You guys can see it as soon as you're mixing it up in the bowl, that color just shimmers back at you. And you know that it's just gonna be even shinier on the hair. We're not blasting through the cuticle anymore. We're using really low developer and really good technology to just get into the cortex and into the cuticle of where that color needs to lie. So we're doing more with less with this. And because of that, you keep that condition of the hair. And with that, again, you're keeping that shine in the hair. Then, like I had said in the last slide, we have that addition of argan oil and shea butter in addition to it as well. You get stable, longer lasting results. A lot of times when I have a new client come in, I have, I do their color, and a time or two from that they've had before, their color fades. With the GPS technology, you don't have that fade edge. If you have a client that's brunette or copper or red, you're not having to refresh their ends every single time because they're washing out, or you're not needing to recolor balance their hair at all. With the GPS technology, that color locks into the hair and stays in just as well that 6 weeks later as when they did it that first day with you. And again, you have no damage to the cuticle. And lastly, the GPS technology provides 100% gray coverage. You're gonna get that gray coverage. And what's so beautiful about it is it doesn't look colored. It's really reflective and it's not super opaque. So you get that really just natural color to the hair. INFINITI also has ultra low ammonia. So we range from 0.2 to 0.9 of ammonia content, which is the lowest on the market. So what's really great about that is you don't get that kickback, that smell to the hair, to the color, and clients will notice that.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, Amanda, I'm gonna cut in real quick. Raymond, would you mind, I had sent you a message on the chat, but if you mind maybe logging out and we'll get you back in, hopefully that helps. I'm not sure why that's happening, but I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Go ahead, Amanda, sorry.
Awesome, that's okay. So with that being said, again, we have really low ammonia, so you don't get that kickback to the client, and they're really noticing it. When you're applying it on their hair, they're not having to reach for a comb and really scratching. It's very, very gentle on the scalp as well. So tons of great properties to the GPS technology, and it just supports our hair colors so well. So this Defend Nature Always, this is something that you're gonna be seeing tied in with ASP. This is huge in the UK. It's really our equivalent of the little bunny printed on our products here. So the Defend Nature Always is gonna be no animal testing, over 90% naturally derived, natural components to it, and vegan friendly, okay? And again, this is something that we have always had. It's not something that's anything new to us. It's something that we have always had. And I know a lot of other companies are starting to highlight it now or bring that into them. And it's something that we've always had right from the beginning. And it's something that's really important to us. So now we're going to be going into how to get that gray coverage. So anytime we're working with higher levels of gray hair, gray or white hair, we want to go one level darker than our target shade. All right. We're always going to be using 10 volume when we are doing any sort of gray coloring as well. All we're really looking to do is just deposit hair. Again, we're doing more with less, so that 10 volume and going that one level darker will allow us to get that 100% gray coverage. Okay. We have an example here. If our target level is a 6036 and you have those higher levels of gray or white hair present, you're going to use a 5036 with 10 volume. All right, so it's as simple as that. We want to make our coverage super simple. We want to make it really easy, and this is just a way of doing that. And then if you have extra resistant hair, we have the option of adding in your OX.
I can't hear anything.
All right, so we're gonna, anytime we have extra gray coverage, or we're gonna need extra resistant gray coverage. So that's that coarser texture, that's that hair that you've done everything, you cannot get that extra just depth within the hair. That's when you'll add in that OX to your mix, okay? We wanna add it in at about 25% increments. And the great thing about adding in your OX series is that it's not gonna mute out, it's not gonna brown out any of your formulas. So it's something where if you're using a 546 or a 743, just by adding in that 25% of your OX will not brown it out. You'll still have that optimum coverage and that optimum copper color that you're wanting. All right. Now you also have the ability to add more than 25%. If you feel like you really need a little bit more, a little bit extra density to it, or you're really looking to make that color a little bit more opaque looking, then you can add in more of your OX series. Then we also have an intense mix. So the intense mix is going to be 1 part color to 1 part developer. So this is going to be a great option for that transition. So if you have a client that maybe has been using another color line that is a little bit more opaque, that's where I would go in with a little bit more of an intense mix. This intense mix is going to be a little bit deeper, a little bit more depth, but not quite as dense as your extra resistance by adding in that OX. All right, so again, if I have a client coming in, they have a little bit more of an opaque color, I'll transition them to the intense mix, maybe 1 or 2 times, and then I'll go back in through with just the regular 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio, okay? And this kind of gives you a little bit better of a visual on that. So on the left here, we have our white hair. So little to no pigment in it. If we were to cover a fashion shade with that, you'll get a little bit more of a hollowness to it. And then you have, when you covering 100% gray or white hair, and you want a little bit more density, then it transitions into the extra gray coverage with the 25%. So it just kind of gives you a little bit of a visual of no coverage to the most coverage and the most density to the color. Okay. Then we have our developer strengths. We have 10 volume, which is going to be for same depth coloring or darkening of white hair. Then we have our 20 volume, which will provide 2 levels of lift, 30 volume for 3 levels of lift, and 40 volume for 4 levels of lift. So this is something where we're using when we are trying to get liftability, which is more of our lightener classes, but when we're talking about liftability, our color is providing more of that liftability, and we use what's actually in our color tube to give you that extra boost. So that's where you can use those lower levels of developer to really support that hair to make it that healthiest hair imaginable. With our mixing and processing, when we are mixing our Infinity hair color, we have 1 part color to 1.5 developer. Our processing time is going to be 45 minutes without heat or 25 minutes with heat. This is something where it gives you that option. If you're used to a 45-minute processing time, I would keep with your 45-minute processing time. If you're looking for something that's a little bit quicker or you're trying to sneak in a client, that's where you can use that processing under a dryer for 25 minutes. Under the dryer, it's going to be no cap. It's just going to have your dryer sitting right nice and haloed. So you want to be able to see your client's eyes, but you also don't want them looking down. So you want them just looking straight with a nice halo of that heat. All right. On most dryers, especially hooded dryers, it's going to be typically a medium to high heat. So we want the temperature range from about 104 to 108. Like I said, that's typically a medium to high on conventional dryers. Okay. Anytime we're processing the hair, whether it be under a dryer or air processing, especially back east or even out in the west where it's been a little bit colder, we've had a little bit colder mornings, you want to make sure that that client is sitting in a room temperature room and under a preheated dryer. If there's any sort of draft, coming through, you just want to maybe take that chill out of it. Okay, and if it is a little bit warmer, I would maybe let your color sit on for 50 minutes rather than 45 minutes. It'll just really allow that color to work and process and give you that most optimum processing time and color. Okay, I'm just rinsing it. So now I want to touch base on mixing 1 part color to 1.5 developer. This is something, the more and more that you use it, you'll know like the back of your hand. So 30 grams of color. You want to take that and divide it by 2, which half of 30 is 15. So you take that 30 plus 15, and you'll get 45 grams of developer. Okay. A typical root touch-up I find with my clients, especially that have a lot of hair and they're within that 4 to 6 time frame, I'm mixing up 60 grams of color. Okay. I know it seems like a lot of color, but you really want to lay this color on the hair. Where you apply it, it's going to stay. So you want it to lay kind of like a bleach retouch. Okay, so we're taking finer sections and really laying that color on. That's how you're going to get the best gray coverage within the Infinity range. So for 60 grams of color, taking that in half, and it's 30, so 60 plus 30 equals 90 grams of developer. All right. So these are some images that I wanted to show you guys. Heather Butterworth, she had done these first two set of images. So on this first image, you can see that she has some gray roots and she just needed her color ends balanced out a little bit. You know, coming back from having that time out of the salon with stay-at-home orders and whatnot, just needed those ends color balanced. And then on the second client, she had done, you can really see that coarseness of the hair. And on that one, I want to say she just used a 3.0 and 10 volume. Okay, so you can really just see how the texture of the hair changed by just using the Infinity. That shines there and it's just even and balanced. There's no hollowness to it at all. Okay, and this last image was one of my clients and she's pretty much all white. And again, I used a 3.0 on her with 10 volume, 60 grams of 3.0, 90 grams of 10 volume, and it gave us awesome coverage. Super shiny. You can see that shine line that's just laying right there. Super even and really beautiful, beautiful images. Monica, is there any questions so far?
Nope, so far so good.
Awesome. All right, so now onto the cool your coverage part. So as we have reformulated, or as we have, launched out this new generation of color, it uses that GPS technology to get you that optimum delivery of the color into that cuticle and into that cortex of the hair. Ultimately, what that kind of led to is the color appearing a little bit warmer. We've had some stylists say, it's a little bit warmer. How do we cool that down? So with that being said, really utilizing the color start here is going to be super imperative in cooling down any of our colors. Okay. And with that, we're going to use our intensives. So we have that 0.1, that 0.7, and that 0.2 intensives. Okay. And we'll go into those in a little bit too. You want to make sure that you're applying enough color. A lot of times, stylists go in and say, oh, I used about 40 grams of color. She had a lot of hair. You really want to make sure that you're going in and using a lot of color if you're having trouble covering any sort of gray or white hair. Especially if you're coming from another brand that is very pigmented. With Infinity, something to remember is our color molecule is able to maintain a lot smaller because of our technology. So we're doing more with less. So we're not giving that extra dye load because we don't need it whatsoever. So other color lines do though, all right? So when you're not applying enough color, it's gonna maybe appear a little bit hollow. So we wanna make sure that we're applying enough color always. Now, if you're struggling with any sort of warmth as well, a nice tip would be to room process for that full 45 minutes. If that hair is a little bit finer and you're noticing that you're getting a little bit more lift out of it, well, maybe it's time to not use the dryer for processing and just use a room temperature processing for that 45 minutes, okay? Another option would be to intensify your mix. Mix it 1-to-1. It's no problem to mix it 1-to-1 at all. You'll still get that shine, you'll still get some of that reflection, and it's still gonna be super beautiful, rich color. All right.
Speaking of 1-to-1, Amanda, there was a question on the previous slide where you showed your model,
Okay.
if your formula was mixed equal parts.
Nope. So I'm sorry, I don't have Heather's formulas for the first image, but the second image and then my image on the last, they were mixed 1-to-1.5. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's my preferred mix when anytime I have one of my returning clients. There are a couple clients that I've gotten in that their color's so opaque. Our color is not going to match up with anyone's color, just like no one's color is going to match up with ours. It's just every line has different attributes to it, which makes them so unique. With ASP, we have that ability of doing more with less, and that mixing 1 to 1.5, it gets your color to go further, right? We're not having to stock as much color, and we're using more developer. So it really just gives you that beautiful natural color. And so my preferred way is 1 to 1.5, but there are times where I need to intensify it and mix 1 to 1 just for that transition point when I have new clients coming in. What about you, Monica? How do you feel?
I'm the same way. I also mix most of my colors 1 to 1.5. I do have a big Latino based clientele, so sometimes I do have to go equal parts, but rarely. I mean, I don't want to jump ahead because you're going to give the information I want to, but there's also other hints and tips that you're going to address that I use for the extra resistant.
Awesome.
There is a question though, which way do you process and why?
So I typically process, for the sake of being efficient and quick, I typically just process under a dryer. Why? Because it's a little bit more efficient for me. Pre-COVID, I was used to double booking. So it was just a way to, if I was doing a root touch-up, just getting that color on, getting them processed, and I was able to see a lot more people in a shorter amount of time. So that's personally my preferred method. There are some clients though that have that finer texture that they need a little bit more time to process. And I don't want to get that extra lift that may happen with a dryer. So what about you, Monica? Do you have a preference?
Same, and it's crazy that we say pre-COVID, but it's so true. So pre-COVID, I'd like to double book. So I was do the dryer. If I'm doing a lightning service as well, so like a double process color and lightning, then I'll do the full room temperature. But it is really nice to have that option to be able to either go 45 minutes room temp or 25 with heat.
Great. And I know some of our other educators, they like to do the full 45 minutes, and it's just really what you're coming from and what you're comfortable with. To me, that 45 minutes coming from what I was coming from was a little bit more, but there's other color lines where that saves time, and it's a 50 or 55 minute processing time. So it's really just whatever you're comfortable with and the flexibility of it. This hair color is really made for stylists, and it just gives you that versatility for doing whatever works for you and whatever you're most comfortable with. Some stylists don't even like using a dryer, and so it's just what your comfort level is at. I think what's something important to remember too is that we're just at a halo. So you're not having to worry about that heat pushing down and drying out any sort of your ends at all, because it's not pushing down, it's not pushing the heat down there, right?
So we have a question, but before I answer that, another difference between the heat and room temperature is that with room temperature, you don't have any variables. So that kind of leads me into the question is, does anything happen if you go past 25 minutes? So whether it's under heat for 25 minutes or room temperature 45, if you happen to go 5 minutes longer or 10 minutes while you're coming back to your client, it's really neat to remember that this line isn't progressive. So you're not going to go lighter, you're not going to go darker. It's going to stop working when it needs to stop working. But with that in mind, under heat can have variables, meaning you want to make sure your dryer is hot enough. As Amanda just said, you want to make sure that it's at a halo. We also don't bag this color. You don't want to put a plastic cap that will suffocate the color. We want to make sure that it's going to do what it needs to do. The ammonia is going to work and dissipate. So those are, and again, variables that as you get into the line, you kind of start to notice the difference as well between the two times.
Right. Yeah. So Monica brought up a great point. Our color stops processing. So if you leave that client on under a dryer for 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, or air processing for 50, 55 minutes, it's okay. It's actually going to stop processing. So it's not going to go muddy. It's not going to go too dark. It's not going to turn some funky colors. It totally stops processing. So it's really just a user-friendly line so no, it's not going to give you any sort of issues if you leave it on longer. All right, so another way to cool your coverage is going to be adding in that OX range. So again, like we said, that OX range is just going to give you that support for that resistant and that really hard to cover client. All the OX range it's just intenser pigments So it's going to give you more of that depth within your color. All right. And then we have the option of mixing in our 0.0 or any of our 0.7 ranges. So that 0.7 range is going to be our newer colors that we came out with within this new launch as well. And it's going to be that 6.7, that 7.7, and that 8.7. Then we also have the Gothics as well, which is going to be our 4117, 6117, and our 9117. Okay. So again, that OX range is developed for that really resistant gray-white hair, gives you more intense deposit, and you're going to want to start using that as a 25% added into your target color. Okay. And again, that intense mix is 1-to-1 mix ratio. When you're wanting a more dense coverage and you're really wanting to limit any sort of reflection in the hair. Then we're adding in our Gothics. The Gothics, remember, are that 117. So it's going to be a green, green, blue. So it's really going to give you that awesome coolness just to take out some of that warmth that you may be having, especially beautiful in that level 4, 5, and 6 levels. It's a cool natural effect that limits the light reflection, and it really gives your color that smoky effect. So when you're mixing in the Gothics, you kind of want to think of it as the corner of a room. The one side you have that's nice and light and bright, and then you have the other point where it meets in the middle, and it's going to be the same color, just a little shadowed out. So when you're adding in that Gothics, that's all it's going to do to your color. So it's not going to cool everything down. It's just going to give it a really nice smoky twist onto the hair. Again, you want to make sure that you're applying enough color. We want heavy saturation and think like a bleach retouch application. Okay, full 45-minute processing time. So like we had said, our color stops processing, but if you cut it short, that's where you can lose some of that deposit. So when you're doing a 45-minute processing time at room temperature, that first 30 minutes is going to be your liftability. That second 15 minutes is going to be all of your deposit. So during that time, that GPS technology is really working and getting that color molecule to be fully deposited during this time and get to its optimum size. So with that being said, if you cut that application or that processing time short by 5 minutes, you've just lost a third of your application time, okay, or your coverage. So you're not going to get that best coverage. If you cut it short by 10 minutes, if you just say, oh, it'll be fine, it's been on, 40 minutes or so, you're really losing out on a lot of that deposit. And again, if you're processing into a dryer, it's going to be the same way. You're better off leaving the color on for longer than taking it off short, all right? And then we can use the intensives. So the intensives are going to be pure unoxidized color that's added into your color to neutralize unwanted tones. So if you're having any sort of red that's might be popping through on those little darker levels, level 4, level 5, maybe into level 6, that's when you'll add in that 0.1. If you have the 0.2, just going to neutralize more of your yellowy tones, kind of more at that level 8 and 9. And then you have that 0.7, which is going to be that blue. That's going to neutralize out any of your orangier tones, those like brassy levels, about 6 to about an 8, right? And then we talked about, again, the newer tones, the 6.7, 7.7, and 8.7. Again, mix in at about 25%. So I would maybe use about 15 grams of the 6.7 to about 45 grams of the 6.036. All right. And what that's going to do is just take off and limit a little bit of that warmth and that glow that might be happening right at that root area. All right. Monica, did you want to talk about the Gothics, how you use it on your clients?
I forget to unmute. Okay. Sure. Well, you know what? Honestly, I'd like to share the visual that we would if we were in person in class. Yep. So I'm sure everybody has like some sort of light in their room, wherever they are right now. If you look at your wall and just find a solid color, you'll see an area where the light hits it and it looks lighter. and there's areas where it kind of looks like it's cast shadow, that's basically what Gothics is going to do for you. So you know that your wall, let's say, is gray or it's white. It's a solid color, but you see you see dimension in it. You see the depth and you see the light. So that's what Gothics can really do for you. So I mean, I like to use it if I'm working on my blondes, believe it or not, and I want to have some low lights without them thinking I'm putting black in their hair. And it's just a Gothic, and it'll just give that little bit of a depth to their hair. I was just going to add that I love the 0.7s. They're my absolute favorite. So if you haven't tried them, I highly recommend using them. But as you start off, please mix them into a natural just to make sure you don't smurf out your client, because we don't want that. So.
Yeah, so the 0.7, similar to the 0.2s, for those of you that have been using the brand, those are created to neutralize any sort of warmth when lifting. But we can use them, like Monica said, mix into a natural or mix into any of our other colors just to cool off that glow that you might be having when you're doing any sort of root colors. I also really love the 0.7s, a 6.7, 7.7, or 8.7 mixed with, like I said, a coffee shop, one of the 036 colors. I loved it mixed in with even some of your copper colors. It's super beautiful because it just gives you that coolness right at the root, and then you can have that, you know, bright 743 on the rest of your hair, the bright 844, whatever it may be. But it gives you a little bit of depth in at the root by just mixing in some of your 0.7 range. So they're beautiful. It's something that we have all been asking for, and again, they created it, and they're so amazing. They're also really great if you guys do any sort of root smudging or root stretches. I've been loving them, using them that way too. It just gives a really nice, cool depth, which is really fun. Is there any questions on how to cool your coverage?
As of now, there's no questions, just a lot of love for those 0.7s.
Awesome. I know, guys, it was something that we'd all been asking for, and here they are.
Totally. How great of, I mean, not just to throw that in there, but with ASP, they really do listen to what the stylist needs, and that's something that we had been asking for, and it's just awesome that they listen to us.
Exactly. Awesome. So next up that I want to talk about is going to be our converter. So converter is going to take any one of our colors within the permanent range, levels 1 through 10, and converts it into a tone-on-tone. So this is going to be the greatest tool in your arsenal of colors. It's awesome because if you don't have a lot of space, you can take any one of your colors that you're already using and just turn it into a tone-on-tone color. All right. So with this, it's a 1 to 2 mixing ratio. So it's 1 part color to 2 parts of your converter. The coverage on this is going to be about 50% coverage. I will say, working with it behind the chair, you definitely get more coverage on that finer texture of hair. And especially the more and more that you use it, if you layer it and layer it and layer it on the hair, you're going to get a stronger coverage to it as well. So on natural hair, we're going to be processing for about 20 to 25 minutes with no heat, right? Chemically treated porous hair, about 10 to 15 minutes. And very porous hair, chemically treated, heavily bleached, or right after perming, it's going to be 3 to 15 minutes, all right? For using it as toners over your blondes, it's going to be just visual toning, right? If we're using, you know, maybe a 8.7, we might not need a full 20 minutes or even a full 10 minutes. So it's really just going to be visual toning when you're using converter. When we mix up converter, we want to mix it up in the bowl and let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. What converter does is it blocks the ammonia from processing. So with that ammonia being blocked, we're not going to have any sort of lift. It's just going to create deposit on your colors, right? So I love using converter for the client that's really not ready to commit to a permanent color yet, but they're wanting something that gives them a little bit of coverage. On their gray hair, I say it kind of is like a lipstick versus lip gloss, right? The lipstick is really going to be that permanent color. That lip gloss is going to be more of converter. It's going to be covered, but you're not going to have that full depth to it as you would with Infinity colors. with 10 volume, all right? So again, when we let that color sit in the bowl, that ammonia is dissipated, and then we can apply it so we won't have any sort of lift. Another tip that we love that we learned from the UK recently is putting your color into the bowl, because that's where the ammonia lives. Mixing it up and really whisking that color, you'll kind of feel that ammonia evaporate, then mix in your converter and let it mix up again. The more and more that you mix up that color and let it really aerate, the more and more that it's going to, that color is really going to be lifted out, or that ammonia is going to be lifted out, so you get that straight deposit on the hair. All right. Any questions or any comments on converter? Monica?
No, everybody loved your analogy, by the way.
It's something that kind of makes sense to a client too. If they're really on edge with wanting to color their hair or not knowing what they need, sometimes converter gives them just that. And that 5-10 minute wait time, what I do is I will mix, I'll say, okay, we decided on converter. I'll mix it up, and I keep whisking it and I keep mixing it on my way back to their chair. Then I drape them and, put on gloves and whatever, start the application. So really that wait time is nothing to me when you kind of just use your time a little bit differently than you typically would with, say, a permanent color.
Definitely. And just, sorry, going back to the analogy, it's just kind of a way to educate your client as well. Because a lot of times they don't understand when we're saying a permanent or a demi, or it's going to cover the gray, but it's not going to be a permanent, it just confuses them. So it's a great way to explain that to them.
Yeah, our terminology doesn't always get conveyed well. Just giving them that visual is awesome.
Perfect.
So another way to cool your coverage is going to be with our 01 range. So this is something that they had kind of taken away from us, and we're getting it back. So again, this is something where they've listened to us. We want something that's a little bit cooler, and we want something that you can just reach for without having to maybe do an intense mix or anything like that. So hang on. We're super grateful that you guys have been really patient with us. For the stylists that have been using it, that maybe have been having a little bit of trouble. Turns out that GPS technology is so great, and it gave us the optimum color to color results, and unintentionally, it brought out a little bit more warmth. So the 01 range, we're super excited for, and that will be launching in early summertime. So yeah. I know everyone will be super excited to have that back.
Definitely. And this is a great reminder here that it's not necessary that the color was reformulated. ASP is always advancing. So where we advanced was in our technology. The color itself is formulated the same, but now they've come out with a way to really give us a cool natural, which is where we're going to get our 0.01. We do have a question, Amanda. So okay. How does converter with Infinity coverage vary from satin color with converter or satin activator?
So with satin, you're going to have a little bit cooler of a result straight off the board. So anytime you have any sort of ammonia in your color, that ammonia is what's giving you that lift. Anytime you're getting any sort of lift, you create a little bit more warmth. So the satin straight away, since it is completely ammonia free, it's going to have little to no warmth in it, and it's going to be a lot cooler of a base just right away. That's something where you have options, you have choices. Using satin, you can mix your color up and apply it right away. You can, if you want more warmth, if you want to intensify it, you can mix in the intensives or anything like that and really customize your colors. But having the converter with mixing it with your Infinity range just gives you the option of having so much more room and stock. Not everyone has the ability to carry, another complementary line. And so converter really just gives you a broader stock. So there's times where I reach for satin, and there's going to be times where I reach for Infinity mixed with converter. Coverage wise, they'll be actually about the same. So you're both getting about 50% gray coverage. But keep in mind, if the hair is a little bit finer or anything like that, you will get a little more coverage too.
a point I always like to bring up when it comes to converter versus satin, and I carry some of my satin shades as well, but I love that we are now over 130 shades in our permanent line. But by just carrying a bottle of converter, I now have over 130 toners or refreshers.
Yep.
So I like to look at it that way because I feel like when I really try to get into my creative zone, that gives me the ability to be that way versus satin has a smaller collection, still great, but it does give you that, it doesn't give you a large variety.
Right. And for your clients that just want something a little bit more, I love carrying satin to give them a really nice, pretty sheen. We have the 0.000, which is going to be a clear shine. And, you know, maybe mixing 50 grams of your clear with maybe 10 or 5 grams of a 7.4 was really pretty over, you know, someone that has a 7.036 all over. So it just gives them a little bit of color and a lot more shine. And the satins actually has conditioning agents in it. So if you're dealing with a lot of static, like I know anytime we get into those colder climates, you create that static cling. So that satin is really going to clean out that static cling and moisturize the hair. So there's really just different attributes to each. Like Monica said, I carry a couple of satin for those times where I love it and want to use it. And I know I can use the intensives to really play it up and dress up my colors. Or I can just reach for maybe a 7.4 in, or 7.43 in Infinity with converter. So it really just depends. So this is our swatch chart. What's nice about it is it's categorized out. So you have your essentially natural. Well, first off, you have your OXs here. So you're essentially natural. So you have your 0.0s, your 0.0Xs, and your 0.00s. Then you have your cool and sultries where your 0.2s live and your 0.7s live. We have our sun-kissed and sophisticated, warm and radiant, and vibrant and expressive. What I love about our swatch chart is it's just really nice and clean and easy to read. We included the color star on it as well. So if you're having trouble or you don't know, you know, if you want to cool something out or whatnot, it's just right there on the bottom, easy to reference. Okay. Again, our reds and our coppers are second to none. One of our favorite colors is the 743. 735 is super beautiful. 453. 666. Our reds are so incredible. And what's so great is you don't have to add anything to get that great coverage. So if you want to use, you know, a 743 on someone's hair that has white hair, you don't have to add in any sort of natural or any sort of cool tones to get 100% coverage. As long as you follow, you know, if they have a lot of high white hair present, just drop it a level and you'll get 100% great coverage. So we have 139 shades. We have the new Brie Brown collection, the new 0.7 collection, and the new toners T22 and T135. So on the swatch chart, you can see we have our highlights, our gothics, B reds, B browns, metallics, our toners, and our intensives. So everything is right on the swatch chart, super easy to see. So we have these new little QR codes. So if you guys were able to take out your phones and you guys can pull it right up to the little QR code, a quick little cheat sheet of our color is going to pop up. It's going to tell you how to mix your mixing ratios. It's going to tell you little tidbits about it. It's actually right on the back of your color tubes as well. So if you're in the salon and you go, oh my gosh, I don't know how to mix it, or I don't know what my processing time is, if you take out your phone, pull it up to the QR code, it'll pop right up and you'll have all the information there that you need. I know working behind the chair, we kind of sometimes, you know, it gets away from us, our information, especially when it is something that's a little bit newer, or we don't know the difference between B Brown or Infinities. And it's really nice to have that QR code just to be able to pop it up and be able to pull up any information we may need. And again, it's right there on the back of the color. So this is the sheet that it'll pull up. Again, it'll tell you the processing time, the amount of great coverage it has, that we're ultra low ammonia, and the mix ratio. So with Infinity, we have the new 0.7 shades. We're naturally derived, ultimate shine and condition, advanced anti-fade technology, and ultra low ammonia. So the tube sizes are about 100 milliliters. And so application-wise, what I love about them is they're larger than conventional colors. So you can get about 2 to 3 applications out of just one tube of color. So your cost margin as well for those of you that are booth renters is huge. Since we're using more developer, it's something that's incredible for us that are buying our color. We've talked about these a lot, the 0.7s. The new 0.7 shades are formulated to neutralize that unwanted warmth when we're lightening. Next, we have our high lifts. So the high lifts are something where I know a lot of us have used them from other brands, and I feel like until you use these, it's really hard to trust a high lift. Our high lifts are incredible. They lift you to the cleanest blonde imaginable. And we have some really awesome shades within the high lift range. So you get up to 5 levels of lift with these. And again, they're 90% naturally derived, ultra low ammonia, and your mix ratio of 1 to 2. Our processing time on our high lift is going to be 55 minutes for room temperature. So 55 minutes for room temperature and 30 minutes for under a dryer. So this is where when we're processing our permanent color and maybe a highlighted surface in between, leaving that root color on, since our root color under a dryer is 25 minutes, but with the high lift, it's 30 minutes, you can leave it on that extra 5 minutes. Again, like we said earlier, it's not going to go too dark and it's not going to mud out your color. So having those, being able to use them as a duo is incredible. Incredible lifting power. So again, we're utilizing more with less. We're really utilizing that GPS technology to give us that cleanest lift imaginable for super beautiful, even results. The shine with the Infinity high lifts is also incredible. We have 5 different colors of the Infinity, of the high lifts, and then we also have a booster. So we have our 12.0, a 12.1, a 12.2, a 12.2.3, and a 12.771. The 12.771 is probably one of my favorites. It's one of the latest high lifts that we had introduced, and it's a blue-based high lift. So it's awesome on those levels 6 and 7, and it's just going to give you a really clean, beautiful lift to the hair. So again, we had said on the last page that we get up to 5 levels of lift. All right. Anytime we're needing that extra level of lift, or maybe we're working on a client that has a little bit coarser texture of hair, we're going to go in with that high lift booster. So that 12.0S. So that 12.0S is just going to give us that extra bit of lift that we're really wanting to clean out the hair and give it a little bit extra boost. And we're going to use that in a 25% increment into our color. So it's the same effect of our high lifts, it just has no color to it, so it's just going to give you that full liftability. We also want to make sure that we're mixing our high lifts with 30 or 40 volume developer.
Can I bring up a question really quick? I get asked this a lot from different people. Do the high lifts cover gray?
No, so they're not intended to cover gray. Anytime you have gray or white hair, and so it basically has little to no pigment in it, right? So anytime you're using a high lift on it, you're getting extra lift and then a little bit of deposit. So you're really not going to get coverage. I would say if you're using it on someone with gray or white hair, you're going to get a blend because it's going to be a lot more translucent.
Is there something they should use instead of the high lifts? I get asked this all the time, so I'm sure this is like running through people's heads. They just haven't asked you yet.
So what I would use is I would go to probably a level 8 or 9, because if they have high levels of white and we're thinking about the gray coverage rule, it's going to drop us. It's going to bring us that level lighter. So it's going to bring us to a level 9 or 10. Okay. Awesome.
Perfect.
Andy.
I wanted to add on there, just a reminder with the high lifts, anytime you're wanting, so in your case, Candy, there's a mixture, right? They're white and then there's some salt and pepper. For deposit, we don't want to do a 12 series because you want to remember that your actual levels would be a 1 through a 10. That's what you're going to get deposit from. And then when you're in your 12 series or 12 levels, you know, that's a high lifted area. So that's where this really fits into its category of its own. And then for those that are wondering, you know, Amanda said they lift you to some beautiful blondes, and they do. However, if you are looking for more than 5 levels of lift, you should always pre-lighten with the lightener first. This isn't going to get you from a level 1 or level 3 to a beautiful, you know, 10 or platinum. You know, there's going to be other steps to take. So I just want to make sure that we're realistic with the expectations.
Perfect. Yeah, I love our high lifts, and I know people are really hesitant because they use another brand where they haven't been getting that great liftability with the high lifts or getting that clean liftability. With our high lifts, you get it. It's so beautiful. I love the 1223 for really that Jennifer Aniston type color. It gives you that kind of caramely highlight, and it's warm, but you have that 0.2 in it, so it kind of cools it down a little bit. It's one of my favorites. And then again, like I said, the 12771. And if you want something a little bit more natural, then the 12.0 is really beautiful. Using that 12.1 is awesome on a level about 6, and it really gives you kind of that caramely type highlight. So tons of different ways to use the high lifts. They're all intermixable as well. And if you really wanted to play with them, you could add in some of the intensives as well and kind of get a little bit more of, a little more creative as well.
Awesome. Amanda, we have a couple questions following Candy's.
Okay.
Using 7, or if you're using level 7 or 8, do you still use a 10 volume or go up in volume?
So anytime you're doing any sort of gray coverage, you're going to be wanting to use 10 volume. So that 10 volume is going to actually give you a slight bit of lift and then your deposit. If you have more white or gray hair than their natural pigment. If you have the opposite, where you have more of their natural pigment and just a couple grays sprinkled throughout, then you'll go into your 20, 30, or 40 volume, whatever you may see fit. What's going to happen to those, you know, couple little sprinkles of gray or white hair, though, is it's going to give you a little bit more translucency. You're not going to have that full coverage on it. So
Perfect.
That makes sense?
Yeah. There's
Okay.
another question. When do you like to use high lifts?
I use high lifts if I have someone that's maybe like a level 7 and they want that platinum type look. I'm able to use a high lift with 30 or 40 volume to get that clean blonde, and it lifts and then tones and cleans out the hair. So I'm not having to go back in and do a double process where it'd be typically pre-lightening them and then going back in and toning. This takes it all out in one step. And because of that, it's a superior product. You're able to lift and tone all in one. So you can also charge a little bit more for it as well. Other times I like using high lift is anytime I'm doing a regular partial weave on someone, I use typically a lightener for a little bit more brightness. I'll use a high lift for that mid-tone and then a low light, maybe a level 6 or 7. So that high lift really just gives me that in-between kind of transitional blonde that's super beautiful. If you have someone that has virgin hair roots to ends, kind of a unicorn, but they do come into our chair, I'll use the high lifts for kind of transitioning if they want to go lighter. Instead of going in with any sort of lightener, I'll go in with, you know, INFINITI, the high lifts, and just give them maybe a balayage or a couple of hand-painted pieces, let them process, and then again, it's a high lift and tone all in one. So super beautiful for that too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. The next up is Gothic. So I know we talked about these a little bit earlier, but we'll go into a little bit more in depth with these. So the Gothic are for our deposit only, no lift color. All right. So with that being said, we're going to use these with either 10 volume or converter. So that's going to be when we get deposit only. There's 4 shades of these, and there's up to a 45-minute processing time, depending on which developer you're using them with. Okay. So when we're using 10 volume, we're going to use our normal INFINITI mix ratio of 1 part color to 1.5 developer. Anytime we're using converter, it's going to be 1 part of our color, 1 part of our Gothic to 2 parts converter. All right. These are the different levels: a 10-117, 9-117, 6-117, and a 4-117. And again, that 117 is going to be a green, green, blue. So these are just going to give you that really nice smokiness to the hair and tone out any sort of warmth that you may be having.
Can
I
these
love
be
using
used as-
Gothic.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay.
Can
Go
these
for it.
be used as toners?
Yep, you can use these as toners.
But I mean for like color correction?
Yep, so that's what I was just going to say. So,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. If I have someone that comes in, and especially during this time, they've been doing maybe box colors, at-home colors, and they've gone red or they have some warmth in their hair, I'll use the Gothic straight away just to give them nice neutralized brown. So I'll use the 6-117 or the 4-117. And depending on the texture of their hair, I'll use 10 volume or converter, and I'll just go through and lay that on. That gives me a really nice even canvas, and then I can go back through and maybe do lightning or anything that maybe. I find a lot of times when I do that and I am using it in a color correction way, it's a super beautiful neutral brown that they love and good to go. So it's a really great tool for color correction. I also really love using the Gothic in toning my blondes. So I'll use a 10-117 mixed with a 10-2 and a 10.0. That's one of my favorite formulas, really, to give you that really nice icy Elsa type blonde. So it's super beautiful. These are also really great mixed in with the coffee shop collection. So the coffee shop collection is really warm and rich, and this really just smokes it out and gives you kind of like that Kardashian brunette where it's chocolate but doesn't have any of that warmth to it. So it's really just deep and rich.
We're getting some excitement with the Gothics here. I just wanted to add, which actually pertains to the high lifts as well as the Gothics. One of our guests here on our class today said they love to use the high lifts, different shades of them in foil, and that's great for dimensional blondes. So it just gives that against those highs and lows, staying as a blonde. Same thing with the Gothics. You can definitely achieve that if you alternate it. Or one way I like to use the Gothics is if I'm taking maybe somebody who is battling that like 90% ears forward, white, and then the back is very salt and pepper. I love to mix in my 6.117 or my 4.117 from Gothics and just give them a really like baby light to it, and it just kind of blends them in all the way forward. That way I'm still doing a color service, I'm still having them back in the salon, but they're not having to worry about the line of demarcation or the little skunk line in the front every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. But let me go back into the chat because we do have some comments here and some questions. Can these be used? Oh, hold on. They're coming in, so it moved. Can these be used on platinum blondes for that smoky smudge root? Yes. Do you want to add to that, Amanda?
Yep, go for it, Monica.
Okay, they are fabulous for that. Actually, I love to use them. Just keep in mind that if you are lifting and there is some yellow tone, this isn't ideal for it. But a little trick of the trade is going back to the beginning of the presentation, those intensives where you have the pure pigments, your 0.2 would be great. I love to add some of that in there, or to play it even safer, sometimes I'll do a 10.2, which is one of our your level 10 with violet. I mix it in. I like to work smarter, not harder, like most of us. And so adding in that intensive or adding in that 10.2 will cancel out any of the pale yellow that's left from lifting, and then it'll allow the Gothic to deposit. I don't know if you want to add something to that, Amanda?
Yeah, so they're awesome too for that client that's going back to gray. During this time, we've had a lot of our clients that want to transition to gray or want to, go all gray. And like Monica said, this is awesome to panel in different panels to really just take it back a little bit, add more of that depth back in there, and it keeps them in your chair. You're still coloring their hair, they're still coming in for a service, and you're able to keep their hair really nice and fresh and really clean and beautiful. Another way that I use the Gothics too is men's coloring. So it gives them a really smokiness, has no warmth in it, and the grow out is so smooth and transitional. It doesn't look fake. It doesn't look altered. A lot of times I'll mix
Orange or red.
yeah, you don't have those weird undertones or look super opaque. You know, it looks natural. It doesn't look colored. I mix together a lot of times the 6117 or the 4117, or even if I want something a little bit lighter, the 9117 and a 6117, kind of create that level 7-8. And anytime I'm doing men's coloring specifically, I'll use converter with it. And those of you that have used the Gothics, it has no base to it. So you're going to go through these different stages. You'll go through kind of a purpley stage, kind of a green stage, kind of a blue stage. Let it process, let it do its thing. Trust the color. It works, and it works efficiently. If you were to remove it at that point, you're going to be left with green, blue, purple hair. Let the color fully process, and you'll get the color and the tone that you want.
Perfect. So we want another analogy. So give us an analogy using Gothic versus 0.7 in our base mix. What's the difference? What's the difference smoke versus reducing warmth? Do you want me to?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'm not that creative to think of an analogy on the spot, but I'll give you the difference. So using the Gothics, it does, it's a permanent color. It's a fashion shade as well. It's gonna reduce some warmth because there is no natural base to it, but a 0.7 is blue. 0.7, it's just going, if we go back to the color star, and I just picked this up, I gotta give a shout out to Amber, who taught this to me. When you're trying to think of the color star and what cancels what out, a lot of the times we kind of get mixed up, or we know it, but we don't practice it verbally very much. So sometimes when we ask, oh, you know, what neutralizes orange? We're kind of like a little quiet there. We're not sure what to say. Think of Christmas, red and green neutralize each other. For any Laker fans out there, yellow and violet are going to neutralize each other. And then, of course, orange and blue. You thought of the Knicks basketball team, right? Knicks is basketball? Football? No.
Basketball.
I need some reactions here, guys. Use your reaction button. Anyways, it's just a clever way to try to remember those things. So the difference between them would be a fashion shade, permanent coverage. You can make it into a demi or a toner using converter, but a 0.7 is just a 0.7. It's just blue. It's not going to give you, it can't be used by itself. Well, it's just not going to give you a beautiful shade on its own. It's designed to help enhance a color. And then the second part to that was, what's the difference between the smoke and reducing warmth? So smoke is going to give you like an ash tone or ash tone really. And then reducing
more of that steeliness.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
Kind of more of that steely type color.
Yes, like the gray silvery tones, that would be more of a smoked out feel for me. And then reducing warmth is when I'm correcting something, when I see, oh no, it's very obvious, there's too much yellow or there's too much orange, too much red, and I need to go back in and reduce the warmth. And then that's where the other intensives can come into play.
Right.
I hope that answered, Nathan, and I hope that little sports team helped as well. And then there's another question here. Can you repeat the formula you use for a toner? So Stephanie, if you don't mind coming back, unmuting yourself. I don't know if it was Amanda's formula or mine. I'm not sure which formula you're wanting. What toner?
It was for Amanda's toner, the 10.117, 10.2, and I missed the end of it.
10.0. So
And is it equal parts is my question.
Yep, equal parts. If I have a little bit more of that banana color in the hair, then I'll up the 10.2 a little bit more. But that 10.2 is really just going to clean out that any sort of yellow in the hair. And then the 10.117 is really just going to go in and make it that Elsa kind of platinum-y type color. So it really just depends on what you're working with, what the texture, the porosity of the hair is, and really what you're needing.
Awesome. And then we have one more question. And I don't know if this was answered already, but would you add 25% of gray shades? So if Marita, if you don't mind coming on and maybe giving us a little bit more info behind your question, if that's okay. No.
So when we're working with our Gothic, if you're, let me try to answer a question. If you pop on, then pop on. Mixing in 25, even up to 50%. If you mix up your color one time and you've added 25% in, it gives you a really nice place to work from next time. You know, less is more. That 25% might be that enough coolness that you need. But if you apply it and you're like, oh, something, I just want to change it up a little bit more, next time you can go in with that 50%. So anytime we're doing any sort of cooling down our colors with this, I typically go in with 25%. If I need more next time, I need more next time, and I'll go in with the 50%. Hopefully that answers your question, but if not, pop back on and we'll get it answered for you. I just want to go back to using the Gothics versus using the 0.7s. So using the 0.7s, I kind of think of it more as color balancing. So like Monica said, looking on the color chart, seeing what neutralizes out, and really just color balancing a client. If they have a lot more, you know, orangier tones in the ends, I'm going to go in with maybe, you know, the 0.7 series, more color balancing, more neutralizing out. When I'm using the Gothic, I'm looking for just a different tone, just more of that smokiness, more of that, just that depth to the hair. So 0.7 is more color balancing, and think of the tones that they're at. They're at that 6-7, 7-7, and 8-7. So that blue is going to really neutralize out any of those warmer, orangier tones at that level 6, 7, and 8. You get a little bit more variance with the Gothic because you have a level 4 all the way up to a level 10. Awesome. Any other questions on the Gothic, Monica? Nope. Awesome.
Oh, wait.
Do we have one pop in?
Yeah, I just popped in. Can you use the intensives with the Gothics? Yes, we can.
Yep, totally intermixable. If you want to add in some of that 0.2, like I think that was Monica's formula, you know, which is just a different play on mine. You can use that 10-1-1-7 and add in a 0.2 intensive. All right, you're going to get a really similar effect, similar to the one that I had said with 10.117 and 10.2. So awesome. So the intensives, we have 4 warm pigments, 3 cool pigments. They're 90% naturally derived, and they come in the 60 milliliter tube sizes. Okay, the intensives are pure unoxidized pigments, so you can custom blend them into your client's hair to create the perfect color for your client. So our warm intensives are 0.3, 0.4, 0.6, and 0.76. Anytime we're using the warm intensive, it's going to be to add color and add intensity into the hair. So if we have that 6036 and we wanted to make it a little bit more copper or a little bit more warm, then we'd add in some 0.3 or 0.4 just to really enhance that warmth within the hair. Then we have our cool intensives, 0.1, 0.2, and 0.7, which we had talked about a little bit earlier in cooling your coverage. And that's going to subdue unwanted warm tones or for extra cool results. So again, we talked about adding that 0.2 into that 10-1-1-7, okay? When you include it, it becomes a part of your color. So you're adding in that extra developer. When we're using our warmer pigments, we're adding that color right on top of our color. So if we have that 60 grams of mixed color, 90 grams of developer, we're gonna add in that pigment right on top of it without adding any additional developer, okay? Any questions on the intensives, Monica?
So I think we just want to clarify once again the difference between the Gothics and the intensives, and I think we clarified that part, but just to take it a little bit further with an example, let's say I was taking a level 4 and I was going to be doing some caramel highlights, maybe like a level 6, level 7. If I were going to tone those, I would not necessarily use the Gothics. That would give a, yes, they're designed for a smoky look, but that's not going to really play a part in those caramel highlights, right? They're very ash, but it's not going to give me the blue that I'm looking for. So in that case, I would then mix up a toner, whether it be you know, any, let's just say for simplest example, maybe a 7.0, and then I would add 25% or maybe like 10 grams of my 0.7 to neutralize that orange and just leave you a beautiful result in your caramel. If I were to do the Gothics on that example, those caramel highlights are not going to look kind of muddy, and when the sun hits it, they're still going to have that very orange reflection to it. So I hope that gives everybody a better visual as to what we're kind of talking here when we say the difference between the Gothics and the intensives.
Yeah, and by using the intensives, we're able to create so many more colors within our range. So if you're, you know, if you're having a day and you're like, I want to be extra creative, I want to use up, you know, some of that 0.76, or, you know, I want a little bit more purple to my color. Take that 576, add in some more 76, and you'll get that really rich, just deep level 5 color. So it's really, really unique. Again, if you have a coffee shop client, maybe that's a 6036, and they want to change up the color a little bit, but they don't know what they want to do. And so you take their original 6036 and just add in some 0.4 or 0.3 or even a 0.7 if you want to cool it down a little bit, right? It's just going to add a little bit different of a dimension. So anytime you're using the intensives, they're always going to become your host color as well. So what that means is instead of being a 6036 with the addition of 0.3, it's going to become your number right after the decimal. So it's a 6.3036 now. All right, so it's always going to become your primary color when you're using the intensives, whether you're using the warm or the cool tones. So I think that's something that's always important to remember as well.
There's another question as to how much of the intensives to the Gothics. The first thing that came to mind is it kind of depends on the results that you're trying to achieve. What is our target goal here? If I'm trying to really just cast a shadow, then I'm going to use anywhere from 5 to 10 grams to it. If I'm trying to neutralize and it's a heavy RPC, like a remaining pigment contribution, then I might add a little bit more of my intensive, knowing that it's going to be part of my host color. Amanda, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, so typically what we say is rule of thumb is about 25%. So again, if you're, or up to about 25%. So if you're a little shy and you don't know necessarily if you want to mix up 25% of your color, add in a couple grams. Start with that, play with it, get comfortable with what that's going to do on your client's hair. And then the next time they come in, up the ante a little bit, add a little bit more. It's always better to play with them a little bit more cautiously like that if you're hesitant whatsoever. They're really pigmented. They're beautiful because they enhance your reds, they make them brighter, or they cool down your colors, you know, just like the 0.7s would. So yeah, it really just depends on your target shade. It depends on what you're starting at. If there's any gray or white hair present in the hair, I would back it off a little bit and go a little bit more conservative. So that's my take on it.
And there's one, let me see, just want to make sure I covered it. Okay. Please give an example or two of using 0.1 intensive.
So the 0.1 intensive, you could use that when you're lifting the hair and you're trying to create just a really neutral tone. That 0.1 is going to neutralize out any sort of red. So if you're doing a client that's maybe a 4.0, right, all over, you can use a 6.0 and mix in some 0.1 and create basically a level 6 that's ash green based, and use 10 or 20 volume and get just a really nice highlight on it, or lift them up a shade. That would be how I would use it. You could also use it in a color corrected way. Again, if that client comes in and they have red all over, or you've been coloring them red and they just want to be a really nice neutral brown, then what you could do is take that 5.0, that 6.0, 7.0, mix in that 0.01, that 0.1, and create a green base color to really neutralize that red.
Perfect. You know what? I kind of want to let Linda come up or come on if that's okay. She has I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it right, and I feel like it's a great example that would be a helpful tip for everybody. Linda, could you come on and tell me about the stylist that the formula that you just posted on the chat privately, and then maybe we can put that publicly as well.
Hi, Linda.
See if she can come on. If not, I'll read it off of here for now. Formula tip tried by stylists I work with. Did comparison on same head. Natural level 2 with 30 volume. B8 gave a warm caramel. Then they also did 30 volume, I'm assuming, with an 8.7 and gave a pretty neutral, very natural finish to the lift.
Yeah, sorry, I finally got unmuted. Yeah, it's a stylist who is super technical and wants to, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be critical, overanalyze everything and try to trip me up on all technical questions. So he did on the same head, 2 different strands. He said she was a natural level 2 and he used 30 volume. One piece he did with the B8 and he felt like that was too warm, even though I had described to him it was going to be a warm caramel effect. And then he used the 8.7, which was very, very neutral and natural looking. And it really was pretty. And he definitely preferred that. So I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the 0.7s.
Yeah, the 0.7s are great.
Yeah, definitely. And then just to kind of add to that as well is the B8 is going to give a warm caramel tone, but it's not going to be an orange. Okay, so it's still a very beautiful wearable caramel tone. Amanda's going to speak on this a little bit, but it's very, they're designed to give the lift a controlled lift. I'll let Amanda finish on that note, but or continue with that. But that's why there is a difference. I just want to make sure that everybody knows you're going to see some warmth, but it's a very controlled warmth. You're not going to see like a bleach orange at that level, at that caramel tone.
Yeah, so with this new range, we also created the B browns. So if you guys are familiar with INFINITI with ASP, you know our B reds. So I'm actually just going to touch on our B reds really quick for those of you that have seen it, and then we'll jump into our B browns. So our B reds is really our claim to fame. They're an awesome one-step lift and deposit to get you those intense bright reds. So there's 5 different shades. You'll get up to about 5 levels of lift and the processing time of 15 minutes under a dryer or 35 minutes air processing. All right. These are going to be mixed 1-to-1. And with this new formulation of the GPS technology, or this new generation, sorry, of this GPS technology, you can now apply them on scalp. So before we had always said off scalp application. Anytime you guys are doing clients that have red hair, you know this, you have that stainage on the scalp. And that was kind of what we were trying to eliminate before. Well, now these can be utilized on scalp. The great thing about them is there's no need to pre-lighten before you apply this red. So what you're going to do is you're going to get that lift and then that deposit of that intense bright red. So within those 5 different shades, you have a red copper, red violet, and magenta. The red copper, and magenta are going to be applied onto levels 6 and darker. And with these, you can use 10, 20, 30, or 40 volume developer. 6 and lighter is going to be made for magenta. Violet is a really heavy pigment and it naturally lives at those darker levels. So with that being said, since it's so heavy, you can't apply violet onto someone with dark hair and expect that bright, intense color. They need to be lightened to about a level 6 or lighter. Just gently lighten them and then apply that magenta on to get that intense magenta color. All right. So again, your shade selection or your developer selection can be 10, 20, 30, or 40 volume, just really depending on what's underneath their hair, how many levels of color is on it as well, how many layers of color is on it, if their hair is really stubborn, if their hair is a little bit finer of a texture. But I will say less is more. Monica, you were B-Red forever. You're naturally a level 2, I'd say, 2 or 3. Yep, right there, natural hair. And you were using, I want to say 20 volume, if I remember correctly?
My root was, my natural regrowth would be with 10 volume. And then when I did the original coloring from being dark, I did 20 mids to ends. but my regrowth was always 10 volume, room temperature, and true to swatch between the red and the red violet.
Yep, it was awesome. So you can see she has natural level 2. She was using 10 volume on her roots. So less is more. Again, we're utilizing that technology in our benefit, and we want to be able to keep the hair in really optimum condition. And so less is more. So stick with your lower developers with this, but you have that support for 30 and 40 anytime you may need it, or you have layers and layers of buildup on the hair. You're going to need that 30 and 40 volume developer to really get that true liftability.
Can we, sorry, can we just make sure we answer these real quick? It says, I thought they told us that 40 volume would eat the red pigment and the best result would be 10 and 20. So it's not necessarily going to eat the 40 volume won't eat the red. I think it just depends on what you're starting with. So again, I mean, with when I was doing my B red and I was doing my natural regrowth, it's the closest to my scalp. So you have the natural body warmth. So I would just stay with 10 volume and I would get true to swatch. I would recommend a higher developer depending on the hair history and how bright you want to go. It won't necessarily eat out the red because these reds are really your committable reds. You're not going to be able to remove them with color eraser. You have to take them out with a lightener in order to achieve removing them completely. Amanda, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, you're going to want to use more of that 40 volume for layers of color and really the texture of the hair. You know, if you have someone that has a level 1 hair, that hair is a lot tighter, the cuticle layer is a lot tighter together. So you just want to, you know, where that cuticle layer that's tighter, that 20 volume or that 10 volume might not be able to get that extra liftability, where you're going to need that support of that 30 or 40 volume. But I'm definitely reaching for that 10, 20, maybe 30 more often than not when I'm using the B reds.
Perfect. And then do the B reds and B browns work with box color? So do you mind if I answer that, Amanda?
Go for it.
I love answering this question because you always have to remember the hair history. For me, that's huge when I'm going to take a client, especially with the B reds, because it's such a specialty color. It works no matter what. But you have to remember, if they've been coloring their hair black, box black, for like 10, 13 years, it's going to be a process. It's not going to go at the first shot.
Right.
And not necessarily that it's not there, because with the GPS technology and with our previous technology, Datum Plus, the color's in the hair, it's in the cortex, but the color wasn't as aggressive to be able to eat through all that layer and layer of old color. So, a tip that we've added in this, usually once you're comfortable with the line and you're using it, I believe a lot of our users tonight or online are new users, but this is kind of our troubleshoot would be, is if you're doing some highlights, you process them, you mix them, you process them, and you open it up and it's still dark. It could be the hair history, whatever's been there. You could mix up one of your lighteners, example, light with 10 volume, apply right on top of it. Do not walk away. This is like seconds, okay? Maybe 2 minutes at tops. You will see the red because the red is in the cortex. It just wasn't so aggressive to be able to, you know, break out all of the residue from previous pigments. Amanda?
Yep, definitely. So you have to take into consideration what's on the hair previously, how many times they maybe applied that box color, that at-home color, if it has any sort of metallics in it or anything like that. Like Monica's saying, anytime that you're not getting that lift out of it, just applying that little bit of that lightener, it allows that cuticle to open up and allows the B red to really get in there and do what it's supposed to do. So that's something where in those situations, it works and it's awesome. And you can just see it happen and you're like, whoa, that is great. And it gets you that result that you want. So yep, so definitely able to use it on box dye or really dark colors that have been layered on. It has that lift in there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then can you intermix B reds?
Yes, so all of the B reds are intermixable, and they're also intermixable with any of our Infinity color as well. So if you have a client that comes in and, you know, other conventional colors, maybe they're a little browned out or they want to be a little brighter. Say they have their color all over, you mix, I don't know, maybe like a 666 on the roots, and on the ends you need them to be a little bit brighter. Instead of going in and using any sort of lightener, we're going to use our B red on that mid shaft and ends, and maybe we want to mix it in with that 666. So we have that 666 and then about 25 to 50% of our B red, and having that B red is just going to give us that extra liftability and have a nice lift and meet with that root color as well. So you get that nice pop out of the ends. It really cleans out the ends. So totally intermixable within each other and our shade chart. Awesome. Any other questions, Monica? Nope. Perfect.
I actually wrote this in the chat and I just want to make sure everybody saw it. I get asked so many times, do B reds and B browns cover gray? Will they cover gray? If they don't and they want that color, what should I do?
So what I would say is so again, it kind of goes back into the high lift as well. It has that lifting agent in it. So it's not going to give you that full coverage of that gray or white hair. What I would do is I would go in with something, the Rockstar Reds that we had introduced last. They're now just built into our shade chart for the new users, but the 6666, the 84444. So those are going to give you those fashion type colors without being a B red that offers that lift and deposit. As you can see, the natural depth that you want to apply the B reds on are 6 and darker. So it's really, you're using the B reds so you don't have to double process. It takes away that step of pre-lightening and then adding on your direct dyes or your fashion shades. So in that situation, Candy, I would go in more with the Rockstar Reds, and that would be a better support tool for them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to, I guess, reiterate with that, Kenny, these are designed for level 6 or darker because just like that 12 series, it's just really designed to lift more. So if you're already starting on a canvas that's white and you put this on, I mean, it could possibly even look like a hot pink color. It's not necessarily going to be the red you're looking for. So you always want to make sure that we intermix it with an infinity shade if we're going to do that, because you can intermix it. Okay. There was a question, can you intermix the B reds? I just want to make sure that everybody feels that was answered. And then can you intermix the magenta? You can intermix the B reds within each other. You can intermix them with infinity as well. Just want to make sure that if everybody can maybe give a thumbs up if that feels like it's answered, or maybe make the question a little bit more specific. But I think we are on there. And then we do have a copper reds and copper class coming up. And actually I'm doing it. That'll be one of my first real classes here, guys, on Zoom. So wish me luck. But anyways, should you have more questions, please keep following the social media, whether you're on Facebook or on Instagram, for more information as the upcoming class comes up.
Awesome. This is Nancy. For Melissa's question on the magenta, I believe that it might be because it goes on 6 or lighter. And she was probably asking about the intermix. So I'm an example of intermixing magenta and red violet on level 3. So it does add a little bit. So that was just, I wanted to get that answered for her there.
Perfect. Yeah, so you're not gonna get as bright of a look when you intermix the magenta, because like Nancy said, it's not on those bases 6 and lighter. You're not gonna get as true to swatch result. Can you do it? Of course, you know, and we all do, and we all kind of bend the rules and play with them. You're just not gonna get true to swatch result by applying it on anything that's darker than a level 6. And especially when you intermix them. Awesome, thanks, Nancy. I love your color.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have the B brown. So these are newly launched to us. They're something that I've been using behind the chair all the time. They're super incredible. It's complementary to the B reds because they are that lift and deposit all in one step. So we can get those caramel type colors. We can transition someone from, you know, level 1 or level 2 because it has that lift in it, and we can take them to a level 6, or we can take them to a level 8. Processing time is going to be the same as the B Reds, 35 minutes, and our mixing ratio is going to be 1:1. Okay. We have 3 different shades with these, so the B8, B6, and a B4. So what those numbers mean are levels. All right, so that's going to be your range that you're going to be at. You're going to be a level 8, level 6, and a level 4. Jump back really quick. So again, it's a lift and color system all in one. It creates a brilliant brunette results on natural and colored hair. Color does not lift color, but with the B Reds and the B Browns, we have that lifting agent in it, which is going to have that, give us that ability to lift through pre-colored hair. There's no need to pre-lighten with these. This has your pre-lightener in it, like we just talked about. And these are able to, you are able to use these on scalp as well. And they're great on all hair types. So like I said, if you have that client that's a level 1, level 2, and you wanted to bring them up to a level 4, what you could use is the B4 and use your appropriate developer with that. These are also able to be intermixed within the INFINITI shade chart as well. So if you want, the other day I was balayaging someone and I wanted to pull up her end color a little bit more, and I wanted a really pretty transitional mid-tone. So I used a level 7, and then I used the B8, and it really just gave it a nice base, so it wasn't jumping up too far, right? And it just gave it a really beautiful, clean color that looked really natural. So I love these B Browns. These are great too, coming back from stay-at-home orders where we haven't been able to work on our clients. If they've used an at-home color, or maybe they're using, if we were doing root color kits and their application was really heavy, or they overlapped color and they have some banding and things like that. You could go in with the B Browns and lighten them. And it's a really gentle formula, and it gives them a really beautiful, clean brunette color. So similar to how we talk about the high lifts, they're really clean lift. These give you a really nice, beautiful, clean lift as well. They don't necessarily have anything in them to control the warmth. So they are really, like Linda was saying, they're really warm level 8. Not an 8.3, right? It doesn't have that gold added in, but it has a little bit of that warmer hue to it visually. So I've been loving these. Any questions on those, Monica? Nope, awesome. Next up, we have the metallics. So the metallics, for those of you that have known them before, and those of you that are newer to the line, we have the metallic toners. We've transitioned them into being a part of our toner because they do just that. We utilize them on our blondes, we utilize them on our darker shades, and they really just add some different tonalities to the hair, give a really pretty clean blonde, and things like that. With them being toners, you have a different mix ratio depending on what you're doing to the hair, and also your variable for your timing is going to be a little different as well. Okay. So these are going to be a demi-permanent color. They're intense, vibrant results. They have no lift action, so they're deposit-only colors. And they're mixed actually with converter. So before, for our stylists that have been using this metallics previously, we had our metallics activator. Now they're formulated to be able to use with converter. So again, it's made for stylists. We're taking away that developer that you don't, if you have it already, keep using it. There's going to be no issue with that. But we made it simple where now you can mix it with converter and have that ability to do that. So with our metallics, we have our pearl, our gray rose, pearl rose, mahogany violet, copper rose, and light violet. So our light violet's awesome for someone that has that level 9 that really has that banana peel, instead of a banana peel color, that yellow, use that light violet with converter, mix it up, apply it, and it really cleans out that blonde. So it's beautiful for that. Copper rose is an awesome low light on a blonde. So instead of using it as a toner, we'll kind of weave it in as a little bit of a low light, really just adds in that really pretty warmth to the hair. And the metallic feel is kind of a steely tone to it. So it's a super beautiful, shimmery, shiny, metallic color. Here we have our Infinity toners, which is our true toners. These, so we talked about earlier, we can use converter with any of our Infinity colors for toners. Well, people wanted something that was just mix it up, quick, easy, and apply it right away. That's when we came out with our toners. So our toners are going to neutralize unwanted warmth and give softer, warm, or cool tones to the hair, okay? The cool tones are able to have a gentle lift to them, and we'll talk about how we can utilize that to our benefit in just a minute. And we're always gonna mix these with converter as well. So we have our 8 Supreme Blonde toners, our 5 colors to enhance warmth. They're gonna be our T32, which I love for transitioning someone from maybe a balayage to a little bit softer of a tone to the hair. So I'll use it as a toner all over rather than just toning out when I'm lifting them. If they come back in and it's kind of just washed out, they really just need a little bit of enhancement, I'll use that T32 all over, and I'll mix it in with a little bit of an intenser mix. So instead of a 1.2, I'll mix it as a 1:1 ratio with converter, right? That T26 is gonna be our rose blonde. T24 is our almond blonde, which is super beautiful. Our T22, which is our lilac, and our T135, which is our mushroom blonde. That's also one of my newest favorites. I was talking about this earlier with Candy. It gives you that awesome coolness to the hair, but not a flat coolness. It has that 5 in it, so it has a little bit in that 3, so it gives you a little bit of warmth for that cool tone to lay on. So it's just super beautiful. I've been using that in between balayaging too for just a little bit of a refresher in the hair or a little bit of a low light. I'll use the warmer tones as well, like I said, for low lights on blondes, which is super, super beautiful. Same way I use that metallic copper rose, I'll use the rose blonde on a blonde too. And it just gives them a fun shade to, you know, play with for a little bit. If they don't like it, it softly fades out and it's not a big color correction. Then we have our 3 cooler tones, our T21S, our T21, and our T2. The cooler toners are gonna have a little bit of liftability in them. What that means is, say we have someone, and especially this is very relatable with these times, we have a platinum client. So maybe they've waited 6 weeks opposed to their normal 4 weeks. Well, right at that root, you're gonna have that extra lift from that natural bit of warmth, lift from their scalp. Then you have that little band right outside of that isn't quite there where the root is yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna apply that T21S right on that little banding, where on the root, I would apply that T21. That T21S, since it has a little bit more lift in it, it's gonna lift out and clean out that blonde, so we're able to match up with our root. Does that make sense? Kind of just shifts the hair a little bit, so we get that extra boost out of it. Anytime we're dealing with these cooler tones at this level 10.
Are you changing your developer?
Nope, so
I'm just— Or you always using, still converter?
Yep, still converter, exactly, yep. So it just has that little extra bit of lift in it, so you're using the liftability out of our tube of color rather than your developer.
Gotcha.
Yep. So with that, anytime we're doing any sort of cool toning, on these level 10s, if you add cool, 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 you're actually gonna create a really deeper, darker level. Like we said, that cooler tone really lives naturally at a darker level. So when we add in that lift, it gives us that ability to clean out the hair a little bit and then deposit. So we're really staying on that level 10 and we're really creating that platinum tone to the hair, okay? The toners are so beautiful. They make the hair feel just buttery and soft and just creamy. It's a super great consistency and just feel on the hair after you use the toners. They're one of my favorites.
One more quick—
Oh, go ahead.
Quick question.
Yeah, of course.
Could you use it? Could you use a 10 volume with the T21, T21, whatever, the neutral? Could you use a 10 volume with that?
No, so these are actually formulated to work with converter. But something comparable to that would be the
That's-
what was that? Oh, something comparable to that in the Infinity line would be the 10-2-1.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I've used that a lot too. Okay.
Yep, it's one of my favorites as well. So we want to think of that T as being at that level 10. So the difference between using something like the T21S or the T21 versus the 1021 in converter or with converter would be these can be utilized right away. So we can mix up that T21S, that T21, mix it up with converter and apply it right away. Whereas with mixing converter in our 10-1, we'd have to let it sit for that 5-10 minutes. Okay.
Oh, so you don't have to let it sit you don't have to let it sit for the 15 minutes if you use the T line?
Correct. Yep, exactly.
Oh, I've been waiting.
Yeah,
Huh, okay.
Nope,
No,
you don't
thank
have to
you.
let it sit. Yep, of course. That's what we're here
Now,
for.
does it hurt it
So
at
it's
all
gonna,
if mixed it up before results with that? But I was
right. So what you're doing when you are letting it sit, similar to how you're mixing it with Infinity and letting it sit, it's just going to burn off that lift. So you probably haven't been experiencing any bit of that shift in your colors because
and I
you
needed
are
it.
letting it sit.
Okay, now I know. Got it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. And we want to remember too, anytime we're working with any sort of lift, and especially with the T21s and the cooler tones, remember the canvas of hair that you're applying it on. If you have someone that has finer hair, you might not want that much lift. You might want to let it sit for 5 minutes or let it sit in the bowl while you give her a nice little shampoo, towel dry her, and then apply this, right? Let it sit for a little bit. If you're working with someone that has coarser texture where you know that you're not going to get much bump out of it or you're trying to use all of that bump out of it, mix it up, apply it right away. Okay, so just use it to your benefit.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Awesome. Amanda, we have a question. It's, can you use these toners as lowlights during a foiling process if they are already blonde gray mix?
Yep, I love them. I love using the T32. I love using the T24. If they want a little bit more warmth and more strawberry to their hair, I'll use the T26. And what's really fun is changing the way that you mix them. So they're designed to be mixed 1-2, but if you want an intenser look, so on someone that has all over blonde hair, I might mix a 1.1, right? I might want a little bit more of that heavier saturation in the hair. So that's when I'll go in and use something like that. Our processing time is also going to be anywhere from 0 up to 25 minutes. So if I'm looking for that low light, I might be using that 25 minutes. If I want just a really pretty sheen, if they're going on vacation, when we know what that is, but when they're going on vacation and they want just a really pretty strawberry blonde, I might use the T26 1-2 for 15 minutes, right? It's going to give me a little bit more of a talk type color rather than a shout. Even though it's on that level 10, it's still a really beautiful just sheen to the hair.
Awesome. And then on that note as well is this particular stylist likes to use heat while processing. They're wondering if it's going to be okay if they decide to do the toner as a low light, like so I'm assuming they're double processing. So they're doing highlight and the toner, if they go ahead and process it under the heat.
So since this is a level 10, essentially that it's kind of a 10-3-2 or 10-2-6, will you have much of a dissatisfaction by doing that? Probably not. It'll probably drive it in a little bit deeper, but per manufacturer's instructions, we're not recommending any sort of converter to be placed under the dryer. So working behind the chair, I understand we kind of bend the rules and play with things a little bit more, but per manufacturer's instructions, we don't recommend it.
Perfect. Yeah. And that is the reason that it's just going to drive in a little bit deeper. So it won't necessarily be a true demi the way converter is designed to work for the rest of the colors.
Right.
Let me see. We have another one. What would you suggest to tone with if I'm using light as the lightener? What would you suggest to tone with if I'm using light as the lightener and when I rinse out, it's warm still at the root?
So I'd probably go in with something like a 10-2 or a 10-2-1. if you're having any sort of little bit of warmth there. Again, you can mix it as a stronger mixture too. If you're really dealing with some warmth, you can mix it 1-to-1 instead of 1-to-2 if you're really trying to fight through that.
Definitely. Also depends what type of warm you're seeing. So are you seeing more of your yellow? Are you looking more at your pale yellow or more on the darker side? So is it more of the like the yellow orange or true orange undertone? So it kind of depends, but I think what Amanda's saying, or even like a 10-to-1, what might be a great option for you. Awesome. I hope that answered your questions. I think we're caught up with, oh, more yellowy orange. So you might want to mix the two. You might want to go half and half, like a 10.2 and a 1021, because your 10.2 is going to be your violet that helps neutralize some of the yellow. And then your 1021 will be more of, it is your blue. So that'll, but it wouldn't be as strong and dark as your 0.7 collection. So I would still stick with that 10.21. Does that help, Ms. Shauna? Awesome. She says yes. Cool.
Great. So again, just to recap a little bit, we are naturally derived. With our new generation of color, we're increased viscosity, super easy to apply, ultra low ammonia, 0.2 to 0.9. And it's also a working pH too. So by the time that the color's done processing, our pH is brought back down to where it should be. So the hair is in that optimum condition as well. So we have unrivaled condition and shine, and this is something that we stand behind and stand true to. Your clients will notice a difference by using this. And again, like I said earlier, when you mix up that color, it just shimmers back at you. And that's really a true testament to what it's going to look like on the hair as well. That GPS technology allows for advanced anti-fade technology. So no longer are the days where our client comes in and we have to refresh their ends or color balance their ends every time they come in. You know, we're able to give them other things, whether it be an extra shine treatment or a moisture treatment, or really kind of play with their color and not having to do just straight pull throughs, you know, one after another as well. We have UV filters. We're not going to have that bleach out, that fadage from the sun like you would have with traditional colors. And our color care kits, our color care and our wet bar products also support that as well. You're going to get that 100% gray coverage, you know, by just following those simple rules. And what that was drop a level, you know, go one level darker than our natural shade, mix in those OXs, or even mix as an intense mix of that 1-to-1 mixing ratio. So you get those different variables when you're using your gray coverage. You have unlimited color results. So like we had said, by just going through every little portfolio of our color line, there's so many products and it gives you unlimited ability to do everything you could want. You're not going to get bored behind the chair. You can change it up and play with tons of different products to give you exactly what you want. We have a larger tube size than most conventional color lines, and we're also using it in that 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio, so you have more workable product to apply to your clients. You get superior results with our 3%. And I just want to say too, our developers are really important to mix with our color. More than just per manufacturer's instructions, they work differently. Our developers are actually shelf stable. So what that means is during this lockdown time, where we haven't been using our colors, that 10 volume that's left at the bottom is just as effective as what's been left on the top. A lot of people have been worried about, like, what about my color stock? I have color at the salon, or I have developers at the salon. The shelf stable, so you don't have to worry about that. We're sulfate free, which is super important. We don't have those abrasive products in it, and our developers are actually sulfate free too. A lot of competitors' developers have sulfates in them, and what that does is it breaks down and it leads to color fadage. Okay, so we're all sulfate free and we're vegan friendly. So some of our other supporting products that we have, and we'll just go through these really quick because we're coming up to our end time here, is our System 9. This is going to be our 9-level lift lightener that we have. Okay, super gentle on the hair and super efficient, really nice creamy consistency, really nice and workable product. We have our System Blonde. If you guys were on the class earlier, Tracy Devine, our global ambassador, she was raving about our anti-yellow product. This is something that can be added into every single one of our lighteners, and it's just a really great addition to neutralize out any warmth that you may be having. This is our wet line that we have. It's our Cool Blonde shampoo, conditioner, and then we have treatment masks. Then we also have our anti-orange shampoo and conditioner. This is going to be catered to more of your darker level clients, anyone from about level 6, 7, all the way to about a level 4. I want to encourage you guys to utilize these on your reds, utilize these on your brunettes, utilize these on your coppers. It really just cleans out your hair and gives them the most beautiful shimmer and shine to it. So they're no longer the days where blonde or purple shampoos are just for blondes.
Totally. When I was a Be Red, Red Violet, that's all I would use was the Cool Blonde, the purple.
Yep, just really refines the color. So this is just a little demo that we had done, one of our educators had done with traditional store-bought shampoo to our Color Care shampoo and conditioner. And you can just really see the how much color is left over in that water that is really poured out of the hair. Okay, so these were little swatches. It's a great visual. For those of you that don't know, we have some intro kits. So we have our 25 tube kit. And so this just goes through, it comes with a lot of our support products. Okay, so you get a deluxe shade chart, you get a technical manual, and then you also get a 10 and 20 volume developer. So this is our larger kit, which is going to be our 50 tube kit. And as you get a little bit bigger, you get more additional products. You get some deep browns, you get some high lifts, you get some of the toners, metallics, gothics, a little bit of everything. And then our large kit is our 139 tube kit. Sometimes this is the best way to, you know, for those of you that have been using the line, that we have the new shade chart, get a new shade chart and things like that. Try some more of our products. You get our color wipes and shampoos and conditioners and things like that. For those of you that want to try out the Be Brown and the Be Reds, we have an intro kit for those. So it's a great way, super price effective. Usually they're about 25% marked down from what it would be if you bought it individually. And we have our metallics and our toners kit. And again, you're going to get one of everything. You're going to get 2 of our converter developers. We have our support products for our banners and for our salons, our window stickers. We came out with a new ASP bowl, which is really nice. You know, we all love our back bar products. So it's a bigger bowl. So for our clients that have just that mass amount of hair, we have our bowl that supports that. We have our new brushes and our ASP whisk. Awesome. So these are our next classes that are coming up as well. So next week we have Heather Butterworth for Ask the Educator. So any questions that you guys have from tonight's classes or today's classes, any questions that you guys have this next week in the salon, write them down, jot them down, come bring them to Heather. She's going to answer them. She's awesome with, you know, being thorough, explaining them, and we really just want you guys to be comfortable using the line. And then I have a class coming up the following week, and we're going to be doing a Brilliant Brunettes class. So we're going into how to refine your brunettes, enhance your brunettes, different things that you can take and add to your brunettes to really just up their ante with them. All right. So that is it for today's class. That's my presentation. I hope you guys really enjoyed it, got a lot of information out of it. If you guys aren't users right now, or you're just getting into the line, I encourage you to play with it, use those intensives, use those gothics. It's a really great line. My clients love it. I work behind the chair as well. And yep, I hope you guys